Hello, everyone. Hello, we're back again for SDVOE Presents Face-to-Face AV with Justin Kennington. That's me, your host, Justin Kennington, and I'm joined by one of my newest friends, I hope, in Pro AV, Frank Padikkala, who is a technical sales engineer at Audinate. He's also the chair of AVIXA's Diversity Council. So how's that for an interesting perspective? Frank, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. This is absolutely a pleasure.
Excellent. I wanted to talk to you today about cybersecurity. It's because it's a topic when we met, we got onto it, and frankly, you had a lot of interesting perspectives on how AV approaches it, and how we need to build a better competence in it. So why don't you start with why in the world is this what I want to talk about? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and your pathway to AV.
Sure. So let's get the origin story out of the way. I've been in AV for about 7-8 years now. I did AV before that too, but so what happened is I went and decided to get myself really into the IT side of things. I've always been passionate about IT, computers, and networking. I built my first PC when I was 12 all by myself, and so I've loved computers for a while, networking and all that. So I went to school. I have a bachelor's in cybersecurity and information assurance. I'll define that in a minute. It's going to be a fun conversation. And I have a master's in cybersecurity as well. And so I was looking to get into the cybersecurity side of things, but I got an interesting job offer from an AV company. And I started off with an integrator as a design engineer. And, serendipitous is what I like to call it, because I didn't plan it like this, but my timing was perfect. It was just around the time when AV companies were starting to get more conscious about security and networking and all that. And so it kind of played perfectly. So the projects that I've worked on and the career that I've built is essentially being that bridge of information between the IT, cybersecurity, and the AV side of things, which, again, the way I like to describe it, it's all tech, and there's so much overlap. No matter how much you want to deny it, the technology realms are all interconnected. We are all part of the same technology envelope, so we're going to have to work together, understand our strengths and weaknesses. So I'm kind of that translator that gets into the meetings and says, hey, AV person, this is what they're looking for, or IT person, this is what we need to do, and so on. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And today I work at Audinate, and most of y'all know the creators of Dante, the audio over IP platform, which is now also doing video. I work as a technical sales engineer as part of the system solutions team. So what I do is I come in and I talk to customers and end users and consultants and integrators and try to help you work through the more complex Dante deployments. And that typically always ends up having some sort of security element to it. So that's kind of what I do and a little bit of my history there.
I just want to grab onto one of the last things you mentioned there. You talked about, I understand a technical sales engineer. That's someone who is going to help out with the more complex, system designs and things. I'm trying to tie this into our conversation. How often is cybersecurity the driver of what makes this a complex system? Does the question make sense?
Excellent question.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, an excellent question, actually. So here's the thing, right? I know I'll go back to one of AV's most famously used quips. We keep saying that AV has no standards, right? And I'll give everyone, the listeners and the viewers of this, a little bit of an insight, right? You think IT has standards? No, they have problem with standards too. They have trouble with all these things. They have the same things that we're dealing with. It's just that they had it 20 years before us. So we think it's all established. So, and the reason why I said that is cybersecurity is just the newest fancy term that security professionals are now using to call anything security related, right? It's had an evolution. It used to be called security. Information assurance, which I mentioned was a popular term. It means securing your data, securing your information and the assets surrounding that data. And then now everybody likes to call it cybersecurity. So when you say cybersecurity, don't think it's just about internet-based, cyber-based concepts. It's anything security. So all the way from physical security and, social engineering, which is how a lot of these hacks happen, all the way up to the complex coding, hacks that you hear about all is under that one term of cybersecurity. So, to your question, how much does that impact AV? I think over the years, the evolution of AV from being that standalone project, which is brought in by a group of integrators or whoever your professional is coming in, putting in AV gear, connecting it onto the network, and then saying, this is isolated. We don't really need to worry about it. It's our own thing. Those times are done. If there's an IT related equipment, IT departments want to have a piece of that. They want to understand what it is. So it's from going from isolated networks to enterprise and converged networks. That's not a trend. It's already here. There's no avoiding that. So that's where conversations about cybersecurity comes to play. And that's where, we are able to provide that kind of information to make sure that, this is what you need to do with your projects. This is what you can't do. Cybersecurity, a lot of times, is not as glamorous as it's made out to be. I think Hollywood and the movies that we see about the hackers who are like, 16 monitors and doing all these fancy things. That's not what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, cybersecurity is a bunch of documentation. It's just paperwork. And you just go back to your customer and tell them, I'm sorry, my product doesn't do that. That's it. And you attest to that. That's all they're looking for. But, instead we go, it's not my job. I don't want to answer this. No, you should answer it. Answer it as, my product doesn't do this. That's it.
Okay.
And then it's on them, the security team, to figure out how to use your product on their network.
Do you think, this question might get a little sticky, so forgive me if it does, and we'll find an easy way out if we need to, but
okay,
how do I want to ask it? Is it right? And wow, you want to ask a sticky question, start with that. Is it right that someone like you needs to help in the cases you do? I don't want to make this question about Audinate specifically. That's not what I mean at all. It could be someone in SDVOE or someone at a different manufacturer. Should someone need your help with regards to cybersecurity as much as they do, or are we behind where we should be as an industry? Are we just in this part of our growth curve, and that's okay? I'm doing a bad job of driving at this question, I think. Maybe you follow it, but
no, I get it.
But I'm trying to understand, like, are we in a good place right now with cybersecurity as an industry, or is there something more that the integrators or the designers or the manufacturers? Of course, there's more we could all do, but are we doing enough right now? I guess is fundamentally what I'm asking.
So I kind of think it depends. I hate using that term. It depends, because AV people kind of use that as a way to get out of everything. But unfortunately, it does depend on the scale of the organization, the scale of the project, the type of involvement you have with different levels of security. That usually is the driving force today. I don't think there's a baseline in the AV industry as this is what we know. We do have a baseline, say, in terms of our architectural engagements or the HVAC or the mechanical pieces, because over the years we've come to the point where if you are interacting with an architect, you can tell them, this is the information you need, this is what I can do, and that's it. And that's sufficient for a lot of architects. So we have that sort of a baseline established. But in terms of security, we're still getting there, right? So a lot of times somebody has to be that bridge that says, well, AV, you probably need to give more information, and IT, this is the best they can do. And we're at that place where, oddly enough, there is a need for security, yet the skills do not reflect that. If you just look at the broad AV industry, the landscape of skills that we have, security is still not a premium skill. I mean, it's premium for the people who have it, but in terms of the needs for the industry, there are several projects that you can still kind of skirt around it with whatever you have. But I think it's going to grow. Now, unfortunately, security is driven by the insurance industry, right? So there's a whole cybersecurity insurance, risk insurance becoming very prevalent. All the end users and customers are buying into it. And when that happens, they will start dictating the terms of the project, and they'll say, I need you to give me this information in writing. It's the only way the project is happening. And when a particular company, be that a manufacturer or integrator, are not comfortable doing that, the end user, the customer, was going to start looking for alternatives who can give them the answer. So it's not even going to be the quality of the project, because yes, compare two different technologies, I'm sure they can work sufficiently there'll be some equivalency, but security is going to be that thing, that sticking point that, the end user will say, I'm sorry, I need somebody who can give me this information. So we're not there. We should be getting there. But, I'm also very positive. There's a lot of conversations. The fact that we are having this conversation, I don't think like 10 years ago, a professional who has a security background would be, an interesting topic of conversation. They'd be seen as a unicorn. Now, we are still unicorns, but at least people know of that security aspect of technology. So
yeah,
it's getting
so
there.
let's talk about that unicorn status a little bit. You said that your degree is in information security, right? Maybe I got the title a little bit wrong.
Cybersecurity.
You know what? Let's get that out of the way. Tell me what information assurance is, because you said it 3 times, and so that's the magic number. Is that a sub component of cybersecurity? Is that something on its own? What is information assurance?
Information security is the component of cybersecurity that is basically, as the word suggests, is methods of how you can secure your data, of how you can protect your information. And that, so let's think about a data cycle. So if a computer is sending an email, the computer is now a piece of information assurance. It's traveling across a network, so the network is part of the information assurance chain. It goes to a server, that's part of information assurance. It goes into the cloud, it's part of it. So basically, anything and anyone and everything that's touching a piece of data, when you're trying to achieve a certain level of information assurance, it means it's part of that entire thing. So that's information assurance. It's just securing your data, but it's all encompassing. It takes in everything that's data.
I try to practice it myself. In fact, here's a funny coincidence. Just before we started recording, Frank, you may have noticed I wandered away from the camera while I was on the phone. That was my hotel for ISE in Barcelona, calling because they wanted me to email them a document with my credit card number and my passport attached to it, so that they could, run my credit card and make the booking. And I'm trying to tell them, like, no, I'm not gonna email you that. Like, here's a secure transfer. Like, call me and you can get the password. So anyway, they called. They said the password's not working. So we got to deal with that. But come on, guys.
I'm giving you a round of applause for that. That is spectacular. I'm so impressed. The amount of people sending credit card information over the phone, over an email. We have security for a reason, people. Please use that. This is how you lose half your life savings, and then you're on endless calls with banks and the police station to just get this sorted out.
Okay.
There's an identity theft. There's some sort of a breach happening almost every minute.
Sure.
Somewhere at this point. So
I'm gonna play this interview for them when I check in next week.
And again, I'm not trying to scare people saying that this is some, it's real though. You can't get away from it, unfortunately. And a lot of times we build our assumptions in AV about security because we're telling people, hey, it's in a conference room, it's no big deal. You have no idea what the attacker's intent is. You have no idea the type of data they're looking for. So what may seem as mundane or standard information to you may be valuable to them. And usually a hack is not a single event. It's usually a combination of several events. So maybe they don't even want to hear what's happening in the conference room. They just want to break the audio in the conference room for 2 minutes so the tech can run out of his station to go and check in on things, and then somebody's doing the attack over there. You don't know what that looks like. So the only way to assure this is to be careful and secure at every step of the information chain.
That makes sense. So let's get back to your history, how you got here. So you got a degree in this stuff, which makes you a unicorn in AV. And I want to tie this in. This is going to be an awkward tie, it feels like, but it's not, because we've talked about it, and I know it's not. So let's jump from cybersecurity degree to your position as chair of the AVIXA Diversity Council. So tell us first, just background us on that. How did you end up there? What is that council's purpose, and what's your role there, sort of day to day, or maybe it's a month to month kind of role? Tell us about it.
Sure. So AVIXA has councils. They're volunteer councils. We are not employees of AVIXA. We are volunteers who kind of give our time to make sure that the AV industry is a better place. And so the Diversity Council was formed a few years ago. I've been a member of it since the beginning, and I had the opportunity to step up to be the chair in 2021 of June. And it's been exciting. So basically, what we do is we promote diversity, and diversity, in my opinion, the easiest way to explain what my perspective on that is just a mutual acceptance of people. We just accept people for who they are. I don't need to know why you are the way you are. Every individual has their own diversity journey, and it's more complex than the boxes that we as humans have built around race or gender. It's more complex. It's a cross section. It's intersectional. The term is
Okay.
intersectionality. We are all intertwined. There's several things that make us unique. My job as somebody who's seeking to have diversity is to accept your journey and say, I respect you for that. I don't need to know. If you want to share with me, I'm open ears, but I respect you. And that mutual respect is what we're trying to build in the AV industry. Traditionally, AV has had diversity challenges. It's not the way we've built up our industry is not built for outsiders to come in. And when I say outsiders, people who are outside of the AV type of things. A lot of our roots in AV
People who
comes
didn't come from
from
technical
live
theater.
shows and from the technical theater and all those things, right? And we know the challenges there. Like a lot of times, even today. So I'm an engineer. I'd like more people to come in onto the engineering side of things. But the growth pathway for somebody who wants to be an engineer in AV almost always starts with, yeah, you'd be better off probably starting in the trenches. You need to be in the field for a couple of years, and then you kind of understand things. Why though? I mean, there are other engineering degrees that do not require that field work. And when we try to set up those little boundaries and build those little walls, we are being exclusive. If you want to be inclusive, make sure that what you're trying to achieve can be done without those traditional ways of doing things. And I think we're at that point where we need resources from outside of the traditional means of AV. We need people coming in from IT. We need people coming in from all the genders. We need people who are welcomed into this industry. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. So I believe in building like small safe spaces where people can talk. So it's funny, like some of the events that we do at the Diversity Council may not seem like a diversity event. We actually won an award a couple years ago for one of our events. It was a virtual event. We called it AV Meets Food. And what we did is everybody got on a Zoom call and they were cooking live, right? It doesn't matter if you're not an expert chef, just cook, but share the story behind whatever it is that you're cooking. And what happened was we had people from different races, different cultural backgrounds coming in and cooking and sharing that information. And at the end of it all, it's funny, everyone was saying, my grandma is exactly like that, and my family is exactly like that. So what we found is that it doesn't matter what race or cultural background you have from. There's far more things that unite us than divides us as a human race. So I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring those opportunities where people can talk about things freely and just be comfortable having those conversations. And it's been great. We've had a lot of people who signed up. It's a very robust, active. We have monthly meetings, and we have like different initiatives, and it's quite the honor to be the chair of that.
Yeah, no, that's what jumped out at me in hearing you talk about this just now and before. It's of course we all understand diversity in terms of, as you mentioned, the race, the culture, the gender, all of those ways that diversity matters. But there's also technical diversity, right, in our world. And this is what jumped out at me when I heard you speak about it for the first time, that here you are coming from an IT background, not an AV background, from a cybersecurity background, not from a video background. And what it helped me to help solidify for me is the fact that it's the way that that's going to cause you to bring different perspectives to problem solving that I think is the true value in diversity, in whatever type of diversity we're talking about. It doesn't matter that you came from a certain type of household or that you have a certain gender. It matters that lets you see problems in a way that's different than how I see them. And hopefully when we work together, we're going to then find the best solutions. And that's why, having people with cybersecurity degrees in AV is an awfully important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to that, man, it was funny. Like when I first started going into like networking events in AV, it was really awkward for me because I did not have the horror stories from AV. to share, because isn't that how we bond? I mean, we go into a group of people and we talk about a project where, you know, the rack did this, or the end user, the customer
terminate
did this. And that's
5,000
kind of how
DNCs
we
in a week.
bond. Right, exactly. And I didn't have those
Yeah.
stories, right? So because I come from a completely different background. But you know what? I started sharing my stories, because did I have horror
Sure.
stories? Hell yeah, I did. They don't look or sound the same, but that's the thing. And what I realized, that it takes a certain level of growth to be able to comfortably share who you are. I think that's the
Yeah.
key with diversity. Diversity is great. You know, it's wonderful. We acknowledge that having people with different thought processes can only make things better. But what kind of an environment have you built so they can share these things and feel comfortable with it? Which is why I like to use the term belonging. I think it's the key, it's the end result
Okay.
of all these diversity initiatives. We need to give people a sense of belonging. And that means that they could be saying something that we've never heard of, but listen to things with an open mind. And like you said, that actually leads to a hive mentality where everybody's contributing different things and building something that's better than what you could have done. That's the power. That is the true power of diversity. And, you know, I'm glad you bring up technical diversities and backgrounds, and we're all so different. You know, everyone has something that's different about each other. I think that's a great thing. And I'm glad you're speaking freely about it too. That just shows that this industry is more accepting of these things, and people are beginning to learn that, hey, there's a better way to do this. You know, we could do this better. We could be better. So I love that. I appreciate
Well, thank
that.
you.
I do.
Frank, I think the last thing I want to mention to our audience, and you're all going to understand this now that you've heard Frank for 20 minutes, is that he has been nominated, congratulations, as a finalist in the AV Nation Reader's Choice Award AV Professional of the Year. So if you're watching this and it's still January, which it will be for at least a week after we publish, go to avnation.tv, I'm going to presume is the website for them, avnation.tv, and vote for Frank. So congratulations on that. I hope you win it.
Thank you.
And I'll go cast my vote as soon as we hang up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's a huge honor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So Frank, thank you for joining us. This was a real pleasure, real fun to talk about this stuff. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget, we publish this every week now. So if you're on our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and be notified when the next episode comes out. After this, we'll be heading off to ISE, and we'll be recording lots and lots of face-to-face live on the couch. So we'll be out of the studio, out in the real world. Frank, will we see you at ISE? Oh, too bad. Too bad. That's all right. That's all right. But watch SDVOE face to face, and you'll catch all the action there. Anyway, thanks again, Frank, for joining us, and thank you for watching.